Hi, I'm Shawn Armstrong. Welcome to Module 9, the capstone of this free course based on my book, Bloodstained Banner. This is where we step back, look at everything we've covered, and ask a simple question. What does it all add up to? And where do we go from here? Let's quickly walk through the road we've taken together. First, we started with definitions. We unpacked what people mean by socialism, communism, and capitalism, instead of letting social media mash those words together into a shouting match. We've talked about the Scandinavian myth, how Nordic countries are often held up as socialist success stories, when in reality they're high-tax market economies with strong welfare states, not centrally planned socialist systems. Then we moved into the analytical comparison of systems and incentives. We asked, how do profit loss and competition drive innovation in capitalism? How do central planning, public ownership, and lack of price signals shape outcomes under socialism and communism? We talked about the tragedy of the commons, about incentives, and about how different systems line up with real human behavior, not just with slogans. After that, we stepped into history. We looked at a century of real-world experiments that flew the socialist and communist banner. We talked about one-party states, secret police, famines, labor camps, and the death tolls that came with centralized power. We walked through ranges of tens of millions of deaths, depending on which countries you count and how you define state-caused killing. Then we talked about leftist defenses and the pattern that shows up after each failure. That wasn't real socialism. Sanctions ruined it. The idea is good. The people were bad. And we looked at how those defenses run into trouble when every experiment ends up looking hauntingly similar. Out of all of that, this course has been building toward one core argument: the moral and practical case for markets, private property, and the rule of law over socialism and communism. Not because capitalism is perfect, it isn't, but because in the real world it has done a better job at creating wealth, lifting people from poverty, and preserving room for individual freedom, especially when it's paired with constitutional limits and reform. So what are the bigger lessons here? First big theme, concentrating economic and political power in the same hands is dangerous. When the same group controls your job and your housing, your food supply, the courts, the media, and the police, you no longer have a real way to push back without risking everything. Even if the system starts with high ideals, human nature does not go away. Ambition, fear, self-interest, and the hunger for control do not magically disappear because someone writes "for the people" on the party banner. So the first lesson is, don't hand that much power to anyone. Not in the name of equality, not in the name of justice, not in the name of utopia. Second big theme, markets plus rule of law can be reformed without tearing down the entire system. If you care about corruption, cronyism, regulatory capture, or obscene inequality, the answer is not burn it all down and try central planning again. The answer is enforce the law fairly, attack monopoly power and rigged rules, expand opportunity through education, property rights, and access to markets. You can tighten regulations where needed, fix safety nets, and correct excesses without abolishing private ownership, turning every major sector into a state monopoly, or giving a single party the power to decide what everyone gets. In other words, we don't have to choose between unregulated chaos and authoritarian central planning. There is a wide space in the middle where market systems and constitutional government can be improved instead of replaced. So, what do you do now with all of this? This is where the book comes in. You can use Bloodstained Banner as a reference when you're debating online, arguing in a comment thread, or pushing back in a classroom. A starting point to dig deeper into specific countries, specific events, or specific ideas. Each chapter is billed to stand on its own. One chapter deals with the Scandinavian myth. Another compares systems and incentives. Another walks through historical regimes and death toll estimates. Another tackles the standard defenses of socialism and communism. This course has given you the tour. The book is the evidence kit with essays, case studies, and citations you can point to when someone says, "Source." Let me wrap up with a closing thought you can think of as the mission statement for both the book and this course. Here's how I'd say it. If this free course helped you connect the dots, Bloodstained Banner is where those dots live. essays, case studies, and citations. You do not have to agree with every conclusion I reach. In fact, I hope you'll challenge them. But if you're going to argue about socialism, communism, and capitalism, you deserve more than memes. Use this course as your overview. Use the book as your evidence kit. And if it helped you, leave an honest review and share the playlist with someone who's tired of shouting matches and ready for a long, serious look at the last 100 years. That's it. That's Module 9, and that's the Arc of Bloodstained Banner. Thank you for watching. Thank you for thinking deeply instead of just scrolling, and I'll see you in whatever you decide to study next.